Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning to Ma'am Siti Mukminatun as the lecturer of Introduction to Linguistics and all of our friends. Today we are from Group 7B. We'll present the result of our discussion about sociolinguistics from an introduction to language by Victoria Fromkin, chapter 7. Before that, we will introduce our group members. My name is Anindya Sari.
My name is Dela Seviana Putri.
And my name is Rafida Nurul Azizah.
Okay, next. This is our table of contents. The first is about dialects, regional and social dialects. The second is language in contact, lingua francas, contact languages, creoles and creolization, and bilingualism. The third is about language and education, telling about second language, teaching methods, teaching reading, and bilingual education. The last is language in use. We'll talk about styles, slang, jargon and argot, taboo or not taboo, racial and national epithets, language and sexism, secret languages, and games. Okay, next. The first chapter is about dialects. Next. What is dialects? When there are systematic differences in the way groups speaks a language, we say that each group dialect of that language. Dialects are mutually intelligible forms of a language that differ in systematic ways. Every speaker, whether rich or poor, regardless of region or racial origin, speaks at least one dialect, just as each individual speaks an dialect. Next. The first is regional dialect. When various linguistic differences accumulate in a geographic region, the language spoken its own character. Each version of the language is referred to as a regional dialect. Regional dialects might differ not only in their pronunciation, but also their lexical choices and grammatical rules. Next. A. Phonological differences. Most dialects differences in American English involve differences in pronunciation of phonology. For example, some people pronounce cat with a vowel O and cat with A, whereas others pronounce them both cat. The pronunciation of British English or many dialects of it differs in systematic ways from many dialects of American English. The most consistent difference occurs in the placement of primary stress, with most American putting stress on the first syllable and most British on the second or the third in polysyllabic words such as cigarette, applicable, formidable, and laboratory. Next, B. Lexical differences. Example, if you ask for a tonic in Boston, you will get a drink called soda or soda pop in Los Angeles. Ice cream cones can be covered jimmies in Boston and sprinkles in New York. And a freeway in Los Angeles, a throughway in New York. C. Syntactic differences. Dialect can also be distinguished by systematic syntactic differences. In most American dialects, sentences may be joined as follows. John will eat and Mary will eat. Can be John and Mary will eat. Next. D. Dialects atlases. Linguist Hankurat published dialect maps and dialects atlases of a region on which dialect differences are geographically plotted. The dialectologist who created the map noted the place where speakers use one word or another word for the same item. Next. The second is social dialect. Social boundaries and class differences can be as confining as the physical barriers that often define regional dialects. The social boundaries that give rise to dialect variation are numerous. They may be based on socioeconomic status, religious, ethnic, and racial differences, country of origin, and gender. Next. A. The standard. Every language is composite of dialects, but it is a widespread misconception that a language is a well-defined fixed system with various dialects diverging from this norm. One language pundit accused the editors of Webster's New International Diary published in 1961 of confusing to the point of obliteration the elder distinction between standard, substandard, colloquial, vulgar, and slang, attributing to them the view of good and bad, right and wrong, correct and incorrect is no longer exists. B. Language purist. Prescriptive grammarians or language purists usually consider the dialect used by political leaders and national newscasters as the correct form of the language. Next. The next is gender X. In Yellow's work on women and language, a number of features were identified that occur more frequently in women's speech than in men's. For example, women hedge their speech more often than men do, with expressions such as I suppose, I would imagine, or etc. Women also use that question more frequently to qualify their statement. And there is a widespread belief that when men and women converse, women talk more and they tend to interrupt more than men in a conversation. It also has been observed that women typically have a more standard speech style. Next.
Okay, the next is language in contact. Lingua franca. Lingua franca is of the communication and commerce. English is considered a lingua franca for international academic conference. Region in the lingua franca in the countries of the former Soviet Union. Savili is lingua franca to trade in Eastern Africa. Next. Next is contact language, Pidgin and Creoles. When the speaker of different language come together for trade or through colonization or immigration, they may create a new language to serve as a rudimentary lingua franca. This created communication system is called a pidgin. Pidgins as a rule governed but have simplified grammatical system and the lexicons. Most of vocabulary in the Pidgin come to dominant language as the super page of our lexifier language. The other language are separate language and contribute to grammatical system. Next. Many linguists believe that the Pidgin has the life cycle. First, the Pidgin has no native, is strictly a contact language reserved for special function and has very few clear grammatical rules and few words. Later, if not using the Pidgin continues, the Pidgin can become the stabilized. And if the children began to learn the stabilis beginning is a native language, that it become a cruel. At the Pidginization influenced a simplification of the language and reduction of the number of domain of use. Correlation influence is the expansion of the lexicon and grammar and increase the number of contexts of use. The next is Pidgin are somewhat rudimentary, but have rules. Phoneme is might be multiple allophonic is pronunciation. Pidgin the typical lack of the function movements auxiliary verb, preposition, articles, tenses, case ending, and plural and reduplication and the compounding are very common, which need to explain the otherwise small lexicons. Data from contact is big big, look, grass belong best, enormous, stretch us, be bird, hand belong pigeon, wing of a bird. Syntaxically is the people mind to create the sentence is based on the word order in their native language until the pidgin becomes daily usage. Next. And the next is Krellos and the Krellization. A Krell is the language you have to evolve its context situation to become a native language of generation of the speaker. When a pidgin simplifier, a Krell is as expressive and complex as any human language. Krells is may have the inflection, more complex pronoun system, and the number of the compounds may be reduced. For example, wara belongs skin or switch becomes skin wara. How are the children able to contrast of the cruel best or rudimentary input of the pidgin? And why? Do cruels around the world have the many linguistic similarities? Okay, one answer is there is innate linguistic compatibilities allow them flesh out the pidgin into the full page language. Next. The next is bilingualism. The ability to speak two or more when present. There are various degrees of the bilingualism and various situations person may become bilingual. Societal bilingualism within a society. Canada and Switzerland are two examples of nations that recognize more than an official language. Next. Next. Okay, the code switching. Code switching is the speech style in which fluent speaker switch language between a written sentence. Code switching is reflected grammar of the both language simultaneously and it occurs wherever group of bilingual speak and the same language. For example, I mean, cause on idea, si me la. One occasion, who count the movie was really amazing. I cannot believe. Next. Next. Code switching is the does not constitute become broken unless and is not aligned with disability and which bilingual try to stop with in the mastery of either language. For example, my mom speaks Tamales, My mama has a green tamales. Me mama has the tamales green. Language and education. Second language is teaching methods. Synthetic approach is the strategies for teaching a grammatical, lexical, phonological, functional unit and of the language step by step. The grammar translation is a method focused on the learning list of the word and rules translating passage. Analytic approach is the assume the adult of extract the rules of the language from unstructured input the like of child does with the first language occasion. Content-based instruction focus the making language meaningful and getting student the communicative in the language. Next.
Okay, so next, teaching reading. Learning to read is very different from learning to speak or sign. Children learn to speak or sign at a very young age, whereas reading typically does not begin until children attend school. And all children acquire spoken or sign language, but not everybody learns to read and write. Reading requires specific instructions. Next is bilingual education. There are several bilingual education programs in American schools for immigrant children. First is Transitional Bilingual Education or TBE. Students receive instruction in both their native language and English, with the native language support being phased out over the years. Second, bilingual maintenance or BM. In this, students remain in bilingual classes for their entire education. And third, dual language immersion. Native and non-native speakers are enrolled in bilingual education, the goal being to have all students become bilingual. Okay, for the next topic is language in use. First, there is styles. Most speakers of a language speak one way with friends, another on a job interview or presenting a report in class, another talking to small children, another with their parents, and so on. These situation dialects are called styles or registers. In an informal style, the rules of contraction are used more often. The syntactic rules of negation and agreement may be altered, and many words are used that do not occur in the formal style. Well, speakers have competence in several styles, bringing between the two extremes of formal and informal. The use of style is a means of identification with a particular group, such as family, gang, team, or excluding groups such as cops, teachers, and parents. Next is slang. Slang is something that nearly everyone uses and recognizes, but nobody can define precisely. It is more metaphorical, playful, elliptical, vivid, and short-lived than ordinary languages. Slang is universal. It is found in all languages and all time periods. It varies from region to region and from past to present. The use of slang has introduced many new words into the language by recombining old words into new meanings. For example, space out, write on, hang up, drill down, and rip off have all gained a degree of acceptance. Slang also introduced entirely new words such as barf, flop, hoodie, and this. Next is jargon and argot. Jargon or argot specific is a specific slang terms that every conceivable science, professions, trade, and occupation use. Linguistic jargon consists of terms phoneme, morpheme, cast, lexicon, phrase structure rule, and X-bar schema. For example, in the computer age is not only used in a technological revolution, it is also introduced a slew of jargon called slangly, computerized and used by computer hackers and others. Some jargon may over time pass into the standard language. Jargon, like all types of slang, spreads from a narrow group that originally embraced it until it is used and understood by a large segment of the population. Taboo or net taboo. Taboo means forbidden. It is a tongue word, and all societies have their taboo words. People everywhere seem to have a need for undiluted expletive to express their emotions or attitudes. Forbidden acts or words reflect the particular customs and views of the society. For example, among the Zuni Indians, it is improper to use the word taka, meaning frogs, during a religious ceremony. Words relating to sex organs, and natural bodily function make up a large part of the set of taboo words of many cultures in the world. In taboo, there is apophthegms. Apophthegm is a word or phrase that replaces a taboo word or serve to avoid frightening or unpleasant subjects. Next is racial and national epithets. The use of epithets for people of different religions, nationalities, always tell us something about the speakers. Words such as kike for Jew, wop for Italian, nigger or kun for African American, and slang for Asian reflect racist and chauvinist views of society. Language is creative, malleable, and ever-changing. The epithets used by a majority to demean a minority may be reclaimed as terms of bonding and friendship among the members of the minority. Next is language and sexism. Language reflects sexism. It reflects any societal attitude, uh, positive or negative. Languages are infinitely flexible and expressive. For example, until today, most people who heard my cousin is a professor or a doctor would assume that the cousin is a man, while if they heard my cousin is a nurse or elementary school teacher, they would conclude that the cousin is a woman. This is changing because society is changing, and increasingly, both women and men hold jobs once held primarily by one sex. In language and sexism, there is marked and unmarked forms. There is an asymmetry between male and female terms in which there are male or female pairs of words. For male form is unmarked and more generally used term. For female term is marked and often created by adding a bound morpheme or making a compound. For examples, in English, there is male hair, female heiress, male major, female majorette, male hero, female heroine, male Robert, female Roberta, male equestrian, female equestrienne, male aviator, female aviatrix, male wolf, female sea-wolf, male scout, female girl scout, male cop, female lady cop. Lady cop. Okay, for the last is secret languages and language games. Throughout the world, people invented secret languages and language games. These special languages as a means of identifying with their group or to prevent outsiders from knowing what is said being. For example, in secret languages, there is Nushu, the woman's secret writing of Chinese, which originated in the 3rd century as a means for women to communicate with one another in the sexually repressive societies of Imperial China. In language games, there is the Walbiri, natives of Central Australia, which play a language game in which the meanings of words are distorted. In display language, all nouns, verbs, pronouns, and adjectives are replaced by semantically contrastive words. While language games provide evidence for the phonemes, words, morphemes, semantic features, and so on that are posited by linguists for descriptive grammars. They also illustrate the boundless creativity of human language and human speakers.
Okay, that's all from group 7B. Thank you and sorry for our mistakes. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.